If you hate planks and side planks like I do, you're gonna like this video. I'm gonna give you my top 8 core exercises for jiu-jitsu. And when I define core, I don't just mean the abs. For me, the core encompasses, honestly, most of the body, from the shoulders past the hips. I think that is a distinction that is often messed up, but today we're gonna focus on exercises that cover the trunk. And yes, there will be no planks in this. I don't think planks are valuable for any combat athlete unless you're a complete beginner to strength training. There's very little transfer and there's very little intensity. So I'm gonna give you 8 better options, no particular order. First one that I've been doing recently that I quite like is the eccentric dragon flag. Now you do this one on a bench. Essentially it's like a leg raise, but you're getting the eccentric from keeping your hips off the bench and trying to keep a straight line from your feet to your head. Now there's no way I'll be doing that yet. That's a relatively hard exercise, but that is the goal, and it's to try and maintain that rigid posture. So you're resisting the extension of the trunk and trying to maintain that almost flexed posture. And it's something that you're going to encounter a lot when you're on the mat, especially if you're playing guards from various seated positions. And because it is an eccentric version of the exercise, it is more intense than most other ones. Exercise number 2, which is an extension of that one, is a rollout. Now you can use the ab wheel for this, or you can use, like I'm showing you in the video, a barbell for the rollout. If you add more weight to the barbell, it doesn't actually make it that much harder. If you go out faster, it can become a little harder to perform. But where a lot of people get the rollout wrong is they think about pulling the bar or the wheel back with their shoulders and their arms. Your arms and shoulders should have very little to do with this exercise. You want to try and almost keep like a flexed posture, like you're doing like a hollow hold on the ground, or even similar to that eccentric dragon flag. And you want to think about almost crunching your abs to bring the bar back. You do that, it'll change everything with how you perform that movement, and it will change the feeling. You want to keep that same flat back posture throughout. You should have no extension in the trunk or at the spine when you're doing this movement. These two are very advanced. So if you haven't done basic, say, ab training before, just be wary with how much volume you do, because you'll be very sore when you're doing these two exercises. I'm gonna give you number 3 and number 4 together because I love doing these in a superset. I even programmed these as a superset in the Sweet Science Fighting Underground and the training programs there. It is the barbell sit-up, or you can use a plate, supersetted with a barbell side bend. Obviously you can do these as separate exercises. I just like to do them together because it works really well. So barbell sit-up, again, a flexion movement. You need this in jiu-jitsu. Obviously if you're playing various guards off your back or seated, you're gonna sit up often. You're gonna use positions like this. For example, if you're going for a sit sweep, you need to have a powerful trunk to perform flexion. And that is where the barbell sit-up is going to help you. The goal with this though is not just to sit up, it's to resist and come down as slow as possible. That's where you're going to make the gains doing this exercise. The side bend, obviously you can use dumbbells as well. I just like to use the barbell because if I'm doing barbell sit-ups, I'll use the barbell for the side bend. And it just feels easier to load, and the dumbbell heads don't get in the way when they're against your leg versus the barbell. You can also use straps to make it easier to hold. There's no reason you need to hold it with just your hands. The goal with the side bend is you want to get as far as you can over to really stretch that oblique, and then you're going to crunch it all the way back to one side. Do not hold 2 dumbbells, one in each hand, and do this. It doesn't make any sense. You often see that online. Exercise number 5, we're going to continue on with the side bending, and that is the lateral oblique crunch. So typically I do this on a 45-degree back extension. You can do it on a 90-degree back extension, but that can be much harder. So depending on what you have, you can use either or. I quite like the 45-degree back extension for this exercise in particular, and you get a larger range of motion. You get more load in that stretch position. So if you feel very tight in these side bending movements, that'll open you up nicely. With your setup, I like to have, if you're on your left side, I will have my left foot in front, right foot in the back. And then if I'm on my right hip, right foot in front, left foot at the back. That's just what I've found has worked best when having that setup. You can hold weight in your bottom hand, for example, a kettlebell while doing this, or if you're doing body weight, depending where you put your hands is where you're gonna shift your center of mass to make it harder. So if I have my hands at my chest, it's gonna be relatively easy. If I start putting my hands on my head, I've raised my center of mass, increased the length of the lever, and now it's a harder movement. So you can move your hands as well, or you can even move where you hold the weight to make the exercise harder versus adding more weight. And it also brings me to exercise number 6, and it's a back extension. And most people will think back extension, that's not a core movement. But as I mentioned, core encompasses everything around the trunk. And so the lower back is part of the core, in my opinion. So back extension, you can do it on, again, a 90-degree or a 45-degree. And I really like the 45-degree for when you're loading it by holding a barbell, known as a hyper deadlift. But a 90-degree will get you a strong contraction in that top position. Now, typically I actually like to, just like I did with the barbell setup and the barbell side bend, I like to also superset the lateral oblique crunch with the back extension. It's almost like a tricep. You'll do back extensions and you'll do lateral oblique crunches both sides. It actually makes a really good warm up if you're just doing a body weight, but you can also do it at the end of a session. You can start to load it quite heavy. The goal with these is to do reps and to get volume. The best my back has ever felt is when I was doing 4 times a week back extensions, 10 to 20 reps, and loaded using bands or plates or barbells. And that was on top of pulling from the floor when I was doing Olympic weightlifting 5 to 6 times a week. So if you think about that, that's a lot of lower back movement, and that's the best my lower back has ever been. I'm trying to get back to that to get that same amount of volume. Now, obviously as a combat athlete, you're not gonna do that kind of volume, but doing more back extensions is only going to help with any lower back issues and strengthen that area. Exercise number 7, and that is the walking twist and the walking lean. 2 exercises, but I'm lumping them into one because I like to do these together as well. Think of these as more of a power walk and twist versus an actual lunge. You don't need to actually get into a lunge position. I just like to step out and rotate over my front leg while holding some kind of weight, typically a medicine ball or dumbbell, 10 to 15 pounds. And depending on if it's gonna be a warm up or your main movement, you can increase or decrease the speed. So if it's gonna be a warm-up movement, I'll usually do slower over each leg with the rotation. But if it's gonna be more of a power-based movement or somewhere within the training session, you can do power rotations and you can start to really accelerate the weight, and then you have to decelerate it with your trunk as you step. It's a really nice way to train that upper-lower separation, which is important for combat sports, mainly for striking, but even through jiu-jitsu, especially when you get into awkward positions with throwing and stand-up and wrestling, where you're having your hips face one way and your upper body face another way. Even in various scrambles that you can be in these different positions, and that's why I really like the upper-lower separation you get from this. Now with the lean, it's the same thing, but you're gonna have the weight over your head and you're gonna lean over each leg. And this is just like our oblique crunches and side bends, but you're getting a really strong eccentric contraction as you lean over each leg. And finally, my favorite, it's pretty much in every one of these videos, is the landmine rotation. There are 3 ways I see the landmine rotation being done when we're talking about doing it from standing. Obviously you can do half kneeling, kneeling as well, but we're just gonna ignore those for now. It's from standing. You can go hips stuck, and you're just moving the landmine from side to side, so the hips don't move at all. So it ends up being more of like an anti-rotation style landmine rotation. Then you can go one side at a time with the hip moving in, so the hip turns as you come to your hip, and back up, and you do one side at a time. I really like that one side at a time for the control and being able to power it out from the hip. And then the third option, which is probably the more advanced one, is going side to side rapidly. And what I like about that is you're getting the speed and you're having to decelerate it at the hip each time. So that's a really hard variation. You'll be limited on loading going side to side compared to doing one side at a time, but it's just a progression you can go through. Heavier loading one side at a time, lighter loading going side to side. And here's a bonus exercise for you. Anything with a medicine ball that you're throwing. Rotational throws, rotational slams. Throws are underutilized in combat sports. While they may be better geared for striking arts, even for grapplers, just doing heavy rotational throws is going to get you out of, say, the mundane or monotonous up and down of your traditional strength training. So do some kind of rotation with throwing and your body will thank you in the long term. So there you have it. That is my list of my favorite core exercises, ones that I program probably the most. And now you can take those and start to incorporate some of them into your training. Make sure you check out the description as well. The Jiu-Jitsu Strength Conditioning Blueprint is down there. It is free. And if you like this, I show you a full body Jiu-Jitsu strength and power workout in this video right here.